You may recognize this duo right here as characters on a TV show called That 70s Show. Now, the guy on the right is Danny Masterson. If you haven't heard what happened with this dude, oh my God, it's crazy. I'm going to assume you know nothing about the situation, so let me just tell you what this guy on the right, Danny Masterson, was convicted of. When you hear this sound, it means information was obtained from first-hand Instagram story compilations and other sources from survivors and affiliated parties, not verified as fact, but first-hand accounts. When you hear this sound, it means it's a verified fact. This has been researched heavily, and I'm 100% confident in my assessment. He is an extremely high-ranking Scientologist in good standing, to this day, to my knowledge. And he was convicted of... Okay, I don't know the official... The thing that he was actually sentenced for, like the official name for it, but I believe it was forcible rape. But let's talk about what happened and Scientology's role in it. These two were both dabbled in Scientology, and that's why I want to talk about this story, because Scientology has their fingerprints all over every last bit of this situation. So let's talk about it. For the record, I'm not going to get into any graphic details about anything that happened to the poor women who were so horrifically treated by the guy on the right. So, you know, if you have a history with this stuff, you don't have to worry about that. I'm not going to get into any kind of graphic details. Actually, he was convicted for 2 women, but there were actually 4 total that came out. I guess the jury acquitted on one. One was not involved in the criminal trial, and then they convicted on 2. And this guy, Danny Masterson, Scientologist in good standing, is now going to spend the rest of his life in prison. He got sentenced to 30 years. 30 years. On good behavior, he could be out at 72 years old. That's what he's looking at right now. So, I'll give you a general overview of what happened, okay? When he was on set, he was hanging out with all the crew and all of the extras and the bit players, you know, all the characters that would come on every now and then, or were just kind of in the background or whatever. He got to know them, the cameraman, everybody. And from my understanding, this is just, you know, I've spent the entire day reading about this, listening to stuff about this, and this is just the impression that I got from the whole situation, okay? My impression is that the parties happened at his house, Danny Masterson's on the right. Hyde's, that was his character's name in That 70s Show. They happened at Hyde's house. Everybody, after taping or whatever, would go to his house and hang out. Now, the trial determined, the prosecutor and the jury came to the deliberation that he drugged women and brought them up to his bedroom and, you know, did what he did. And when they realized what was happening, in one case, at the very least, he pulled a gun out of his nightstand drawer next to the bed and forced the situation to continue, basically. To try to keep this as low level as possible. So, you know what? One event of some questionable thing happening at a party or whatever, reasonable doubt is here, right? Like, okay, maybe they were just angry at each other. I don't know. One event, right? It's like he said, she said. I'm probably going to side with the victims in just about every situation, but you know, you've got to... I try to give benefit of the doubt in most situations, but unfortunately for Danny Masterson, it's not just one victim, and as it turns out, there is a lot more to this story. Oh my God. Right before Danny Masterson's sentencing, he was already convicted. The judge was just going to decide how long he gets. He got the maximum, by the way. A bunch of people wrote letters to the judge, the character letters. This is requested sometimes. They write letters, like the defense requested letters from family and friends and stuff, requesting a lighter sentence. This happens. Well, guess who wrote a letter? Ashton Kutcher, the guy on the left. Kelso. Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis. And you know who else? Oh boy, there's a list. The mom and the dad on the show wrote a letter also. So did, let's see, who else? Of course, you'd expect his family members. His brother-in-law, Billy Baldwin, wrote a letter in his defense to the judge. But what's more fascinating is the people that did not write a letter in his defense. And we're going to take a look at some of those letters. I don't know if you've never seen the show. I'm just going to name some characters. Donna and Eric, two of the main characters, they did not write letters to the judge in his defense or to help lower his sentence or any of that stuff. They have said basically nothing this entire time, except Eric's wife came out and said this. Topher Grace is Eric. That's the guy's actual name, Topher Grace. What a wild name, right? Anyway, Topher Grace's wife, Ashley, posted a picture of the blue sky and greenery and captioned it, "To every victim that is re-traumatized by witnessing society debate and focus their attentions on what's going to happen to the rapist. I see you." That's what she said. I thought that was apt and interesting. So take that for what you will, you know? It was not all support. Like I said, we actually have a lot of letters. I have every letter here from every person that wrote a letter, including family members. I have no need to go into those or interests, but I do want to talk about some of the things that some of the more famous people said, like his buddy Kelso here on the left, Ashton Kutcher. Quick interjection. I won't take long. I just wanted to tell you guys, YouTube's algorithm operates off of a few factors. Watch time, whether or not you subscribe, and whether or not you like something. So if you really want to help my channel, I would appreciate it if you guys watch the video to the end. If you don't watch it to the end, just watch a little bit longer than you would have otherwise. I would appreciate that very much. All right, let's get back to the video. Now, if you didn't know, Ashton Kutcher runs a human trafficking and SA prevention nonprofit organization called Thorn, I believe. He's even testified in front of Congress, right? So what the hell is he doing writing a letter to the judge to request leniency on somebody who's been convicted of this stuff? What is he doing writing this letter to the judge on his behalf? Let me just take a quick look at the letter real quick. We actually have scanned copies of the letters. I'm not going to bother pulling up the scanned copies because, you know, this is preferable in my opinion. But let's just read it here. "My name is Ashton Kutcher. I am an actor, investor, philanthropist, and most importantly, a father. I met Danny Masterson when I was 20 years old in 1998. So that's when the show started, when Ashton Kutcher was 20. That's going to come into play in a second. He instantly became a friend, dedicated coworker, and role model to me, and he's remained as such for 25 years. As a friend, Danny has been nothing but a positive influence on me. He's an extraordinarily honest and intentional human being. Over 25-year relationship. I get spell check, bro. Over our 25-year relationship, I assume he meant. I don't ever recall him lying to me. He's taught me about being direct and confronting issues in life and relationships head on, resolving them and moving forward. Danny's a person that is consistently there for you when you need him. We've traveled around the world together, raised our daughters together, and shared countless family moments. Not only is he a good friend to me, I've witnessed him to be a good friend to others and the kind of brother others would be lucky to have." Yeah, this is full of typos and spelling errors. "As a role model, Danny's consistently been an excellent one. I attribute not falling into the typical Hollywood life of drugs directly to Danny." Now that, right there, is a really interesting thing for this dude to have said. Ashton Kutcher. It was really interesting for him to bring up drug use. Because as far as I can tell, I mean, take it with a grain of salt. I'm very confident that this is true, but it's not. I'm not pulling up evidence to show in front of you here, so take it with a grain of salt. I believe Danny Masterson is an alcoholic or drinks a lot, has a problem with it. That's my understanding. Alcohol is a drug. And not only that, but the reason why he's bringing up drug use in the first place here, I am guessing, is because of the fact that Danny drugged his victims, his survivors. They're not victims, they're survivors. He drugged his survivors. That wasn't part of the first trial. It was a mistrial was declared because it was a deadlock on the jury, and then they retried him, and the judge allowed the he drugged the girls part of the equation to be shown by the prosecutor. And maybe that was the thing that kicked it over the edge. I don't know. But he definitely drugged them. According to the trial, according to the evidence that we've seen that was released by, the defense and the prosecution and the everything else, he drugged them. So it's interesting that, one, Danny Masterson is not anti-drug because he drinks alcohol like a fish, apparently, if reports are to be believed. By the way, I've heard a lot of this stuff. I just want to give credit to who I got some of this sourcing from. YouTube channel called Growing Up in Psychology, also known as SPTV, Suppressive Person TV. Dude's name is Aaron, I think. He's been really, really interesting, really good, a great resource for a lot of this. So he's got a YouTube channel, got like 172,000 subbies on there or something like that. Anyway, I got a lot of the videos that we're going to watch in a minute from him. So it's interesting to me that Ashton Kutcher brought up, the use of drugs when Danny was not anti-drug. I mean, maybe anti-hard drug, but why bring that up at all? Why is that part of the equation? Why did he bring this up? Anytime that we were to meet someone or interact with someone who was on drugs or did drugs, he made it clear that it wouldn't be a good person to be friends with. And for me, that was an implication that if I were to do drugs, he wouldn't want to be friends with me, which is something I never would have wanted to risk or jeopardize. I'm grateful to him for that positive peer pressure. He also set an extraordinary, another typo, standard around how you teat other people. I'm just reading it as it's written, okay? Don't blame the messenger. There was an incident where we were at a pizza parlor and a belligerent man entered who was berating his girlfriend. We'd never met or seen these people before, but Danny was the first person to jump to the defense of this girl. Look, Ashton Kutcher, this isn't the place to adjudicate whether or not he did it. He did it. Okay, that's been decided by the jury already, long and long ago. All you're supposed to be doing is writing a letter in defense of his character and saying he doesn't deserve to spend the rest of his life, or maybe only 15 years of his life, because he's not a danger to society. You can pretend that he protected girls all you want at that time in your lives. That is not what was happening. And you know the sad part about it? Ashton Kutcher knows that. And I know he knows that because I have a video of him on a Rosie O'Donnell interview from 2002. Now, if you don't know that 70s show, there are four main characters. There's Donna, Eric, Hyde, and Kelso. It's been a while since I've seen it. Donna, Eric, Hyde, and Kelso, right? Here's Hyde and Kelso. Kelso, on the left, Ashton Kutcher's character, was dating Mila Kunis. Mila Kunis' character. I don't remember her name all of a sudden. Okay, Jackie was her name, I'm being told. I'm sorry. Yeah, I couldn't remember. Here's a picture of the main characters here. Jackie at the top. Hyde on the left in the middle. And then we've got, oh my God, I don't remember his character, but his real name is Wilmer on the right. And then we've got Ashton Kutcher bottom left, Eric in the middle on the bottom, and then Donna on the bottom right. Those are the main characters, right? Well, Kelso was dating Jackie, the girl on the top here. He was dating her in the show. Like it was part of the plot or whatever, right? Except she was 14 years old at the time. And as he points out in this letter that he wrote, this character letter, he was 20 when they met. She was 14, he was 20. Now, you know what? For film, okay, that's a little weird, very weird, but for film, it's pretend. We're not actually dating anybody, right? But watch this interview on Rosie O'Donnell's TV show in 2002, April 2002, and it should be pretty clear to you after seeing this interview that he knew exactly what he was doing. Ashton Kutcher knew exactly what Danny Masterson was doing, in my humble opinion. He's telling a story about something that happened on set. Remember, 14-year-old girl hasn't had her first kiss, and 20-year-old man, Ashton Kutcher.
You know what's funny is when she was 14 when we started the show. I was like 19, right?
No, you were 20. Maybe even 21, actually.
Right. And they're like, okay, you guys are going to be making out in this scene. And I'm like thinking like, wait, this is like slightly ill.
That's weird, but you know what? I guess if there's like she was portrayed as being 16, I think, and he was supposed to be 17 in the show. I don't know. They stretched their ages a lot, but I guess for acting purposes, like this really is not appropriate to have done in the show, but okay, whatever.
Hey, that's probably your first kiss ever, right?
It was my first kiss. Why don't you tell them a bet you made with Danny about our first kiss?
No, it wasn't the first kiss.
What was that? A bet you made with Danny about our first kiss? Interesting. Go on.
It was like a second or third kiss.
It was the first. It was like the first week.
No, it was not the first week.
Whatever.
Okay, this is telling me that it was the first week and it was the first kiss, almost certainly, right? But that's not the point of the story. Just keep listening.
Let me tell you what happened.
No, let me tell you what happened.
No, okay, so I've never kissed a guy. So I was so, I mean, you know, Ash was attractive, and I was a 14-year-old little girl, and I was extremely scared for my life.
Sure.
And he was very nice about it. He was like, oh, don't worry. So I was like, okay. Then Danny goes and goes,
Okay, so he says, don't worry, i.e., I understand that there's a little bit of a weird power imbalance type of deal happening between us, right? Because I'm 20 and you're 14, and you know, you've never had your first kiss or anything like that, so this is going to be a little strange for you. But don't worry about it. I'll make this as not weird as humanly possible for you. That's what he was conveying to her, right? Okay, go on.
Sure.
and he was very nice about it. He was like, oh, don't worry. So I was like, okay. Then Danny goes and goes, dude, I'll give you $10 if you French kiss her. What would you stick your tongue in my mouth or something?
Danny Masterson went up to Ashton Kutcher and said, dude, I'll give you $10 if you stick your tongue in her mouth, i.e. you French kiss her on their first kiss. That is, you know what? That seals it. That is the evidence that I needed to know that Ashton Kutcher knew exactly what was happening that entire time. Okay? And it's the evidence I needed. I mean, I already, you know, this is already sealed and done, but this just pushes it over the edge for me to close the book on it and say, yeah, Danny Masterson is guilty as far as I can tell. But no excuses for this. 2002, I think the show is still going at the time. And don't tell me it's a cultural thing, because in a second, as you'll hear, Rosie O'Donnell aptly points out that that's illegal. That's sexual assault, and it's wrong. All the way back then, nobody believed this to be acceptable.
What? No.
For $10.
You're making it sound like it was like really. Okay, Dan, we had a little side bet going.
Yeah.
Like,
Which was?
It wasn't very
Okay, so this is Ashton Kutcher's version of it, and it's supposed to be less bad.
whether or not, you're kissing on the show or boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah.
You would use tongue, right, Rosie? I mean, you would use.
Well, I assume that Ashton Kutcher would be the one using tongue, right? Mostly, at least. Because he had kissed people before and she hadn't.
It depends what kind of an actor you are, I guess.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
So Danny bets me like $20 that I wouldn't do it, and of course I'm like.
Okay, so it was actually $20. So he's trying to bribe him to sexually assault this girl. This 14-year-old, okay? He's 20 and she's 14. Danny Masterson was trying to bribe a 20-year-old to sexually assault a 14-year-old. That's what happened. And this interview's from 2002.
Yeah, sure. What's the deal? You know?
Then the cop showed up and you got arrested, pretty much.
Did you catch that little ditty right there that Rosie O'Donnell just said?
Yeah, sure. What's the deal? You know?
Then the cop showed up and you got arrested, pretty much.
That's interesting, isn't it? And then the cop showed up. I.e., everybody knew that that was wrong. You could tell that Ashton Kutcher knew it was wrong, and he was uncomfortable with the fact that the story was brought up at all. Rosie O'Donnell knew it was wrong, Mila Kunis knew it was wrong, and Ashton Kutcher knew it was wrong. And Danny Masterson was the one trying to push it. Ashton Kutcher, in this letter that he wrote to the judge about his buddy Danny Masterson never doing any drugs, being a perfect role model, super nice, took care of everybody he knew. He left that story out, though, didn't he? Let me give you a little word of advice here. If you do what Hyde or Danny Masterson did to multiple women, a minimum of four that we know of, if you do that to 4 women or any women, you cannot expect a character letter from me. I don't care what kind of anything you have or blackmail or what kind of a close friendship we have. It goes right out the window when you do something like that. I don't care. So anyways, this was the evidence that I needed to just close the book on the case. Like, I'm trying to determine, was Ashton Kutcher's letter that he wrote to the judge just an error in judgment? Or was this, like, he knew what Danny Masterson was all along? Like, did he not believe that Danny Masterson had these charges or that he really did this stuff? Did he see just a completely different guy? Or did Ashton Kutcher know the whole time? You can make your own determination based off of that. I'm pretty comfortable saying he knew what he was up to, at least a little bit. Or he knew he was kind of a scumbag, right? At the very least. Well, Ashton Kutcher was not the only one that wrote a letter. In this picture, it was Jackie, top, and then it was Ashton Kutcher, bottom left. Eric, guy in the bottom middle, did not write a letter. The girl on the right, Laura P., I forget what her actual full name is. She was a member of Scientology, but did not write a letter. Everybody in this picture was affiliated with Scientology at some point in some way. And Scientology contributed to this entire situation in so many disgusting ways. So, girl in the bottom right did not write a letter for him. The dude in the middle right didn't write a letter, but my understanding is he's not a fantastic person either. Again, take that with a grain of salt. I don't know. I don't know these people personally. But anyway, listen to Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis try to back it up and apologize for writing letters. The letters were just released. This is pretty common. I mean, these letters are not expected to remain private in a court proceeding. I can see the defense attorney promising that they will be, but he had no reason to promise that, no way to promise that to them, no authority to or anything, and they should have known better. But anyways, the letters were released, and then September 9th, 2023, Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, Jackie and Kelso came out, and they apologized.
We are aware of the pain that has been caused by the character letters that we wrote on behalf of Danny Masterson.
We support victims. We have done this historically through our work and will continue to do so in the future.
You know what I find fascinating? They're making it clear that they're not really reading off of a teleprompter by looking at each other back and forth. But notice how this is structured. Kelso says something, Jackie says something. Kelso says something, Jackie says something. They're trading off, and they're saying exactly what's necessary, no more, no less. This seems like it was a scripted thing that was intended to look like it wasn't. That, again, just my own speculation, but keep listening here. So they support the victims, according to Jackie, okay?
We have done this historically through our work and will continue to do so in the future.
A couple months ago, Danny's family reached out to us, and they asked us to write character letters to represent the person that we knew for 25 years.
It was all pointless in the end. Danny Masterson got the maximum, so whatever.
So that the judge could take that into full consideration relative to the sentencing.
What they misunderstood about the task at hand is they were supposed to be convincing the judge that he was no longer a danger to society, rather than convincing the judge that he didn't do it. The judge knew full well that he did it.
The letters were not written to question the legitimacy of the judicial system or the validity of the jury's ruling.
Okay, well, that's what the letters did.
They were intended for the judge to read and not to undermine the testimony of the victims or re-traumatize them.
Well, guess what, buddy? You should have known this. I'm sorry. You should have known. You look it up. Something. Talk to legal counsel, dude. You got like, how much? What is this dude worth? These aren't really trustworthy, like just looking celebrity net worths up online, but it says 200 million, so who knows? He made a lot of money on this show. Not only that, he has a nonprofit organization called Thorn dedicated to stopping SA and child and human trafficking. So he has a lot of money to throw around. He could afford to hire a lawyer to tell him, bro, these are not going to be private. There's no reasonable expectation of privacy in these types of situations.
Anyway, we would never want to do that. And we're sorry if that has taken place.
Our heart goes out to every single person who's ever been a victim of sexual assault, sexual abuse, or rape.
Or Danny, a victim of Danny. Why didn't you going to stick that in there anywhere? Why didn't you apologize to the girls that you re-traumatized specifically? And I mean, they know them, by the way. These aren't just some random people. These were, to my knowledge, models and extras that were somehow involved in the filming process of that 70s show. That's what got them to the parties in the first place. In some cases, I believe that Danny Masterson was dating one or two at various times, which is not an excuse for doing what he did, even though they were dating. But okay.
Of sexual assault, sexual abuse, or rape.
The end. Said exactly what was necessary, no more, no less. So anyway, I don't know. I'm not really comfortable with these two people anymore after they wrote a couple of character letters like that. For somebody who, it seems to me, they knew was like that. They knew was a scumbag doing this stuff, right? Based on what they said on Rosie O'Donnell?
Not the first week.
Whatever. Let me tell you what happened.
No, let me tell you.
Just based on that alone, it seems like they knew what Danny was up to, at least a little bit. They knew he was a scumbag all the way back then. Maybe they didn't know that he was doing this. I have reason to believe they both knew, at least Ashton Kutcher knew, what Danny was up to. But again, that's speculation. Either way, they knew he was a scumbag, and that's all I need to know, right? I don't know if you knew this about Ashton Kutcher, if you're a Kutcher fan. He was dating a girl named Ashley Elrin, apparently, back in 2001. And he was 23 years old at the time when this was going on, this relationship that he had with her. He was going to pick her up. They're going to go out on a date, right? He shows up to her door and knocks. Nothing happens, no answer. And what happens next depends on whose version of the story you believe. Do you believe the prosecutors who established all this stuff through evidence and fact-finding and everything else? Or do you believe him, like Ashton Kutcher, who lied 20-something years ago? I'm pretty comfortable laying these facts out in front of you and saying that Ashton Kutcher lied. So here's what happened according to prosecution and evidence and everything else. Ashton Kutcher knocks on the door. No answer. That's really strange. He walks into her house and finds her dead body out of view from the window in another room. She had been, I believe, stabbed a whole bunch. She was dead. And he was horrified by this. And he, exits the house and on his way out, touches the door frame and leaves a fingerprint on it. That's how prosecutors and investigators knew that he was in the house. Actually, the fingerprint was left on the doorknob, and investigators originally completely believed his story. But first-hand accounts say he walked in and saw her lying there and called Danny Masterson for advice, his friend with connections to a powerful church with a history of covering up illegal activities and misdeeds. That history has been backed up by the FBI over the years. After that, he went and called Danny Masterson, trying to reconstruct the story here, and some other people, because he was loosely involved in Scientology at the time, and asked them what to do. And they told him, just go to the place you were going to go to. It was some, I don't know, dance or ball or bar or something. I don't know what it was. Just go to the event, claim you knocked on her door, she didn't answer, so you left without her. And somebody else will find the body. Well, guess what happened? He did that, and when investigators started poking around and asking questions, he told them this fictitious story that if he had just told the truth about in the first place, there's no reason not to, except for the fact that it would have looked bad on a budding actor's career, possibly. That's the way he viewed it, apparently, or the way Danny Masterson and the Church of Scientology viewed it. If he had just told the truth, they would have caught the killer, the real killer. He was apparently a serial killer who had been going around doing this stuff for a while. And eventually, Ashton Kutcher testified in the case against the guy that killed her, a decade or more later. He went on to kill more women because Ashton Kutcher didn't come out and just tell the truth about it in the first place. So what this tells me about Ashton Kutcher is that he has a history of making very bad decisions, of favoring Scientology, of favoring people who were not trustworthy in his life at all, of making decisions that he absolutely should not have made. That's just my take on the situation. Is he a bad guy? I don't think so, but he's done some awfully questionable things, right? Let me just talk about Scientology and their role in this, because I haven't really hit on that very much, and that's an incredibly integral part of this situation. Okay, Danny Masterson was dating a couple of these women, one or two of these women at the time. Not all of them. Some of them were just there for a party. So anyways, Scientology is an inherently controlling belief system. The girl that he was dating was not a Scientologist originally. He brought her into Scientology. It'd kind of be like a necessary part of it, because Scientology envelops your life so completely that you can't like be with somebody else who isn't also a Scientologist. I don't know if it's a rule or not. It's just you can't. It's like being a Jehovah's Witness and being with a non-Jehovah's Witness. You can't, because it controls your life down to a granular level. Scientology is an extremely controlling group, which is what defines something as a cult. A high control group. So the girl's experiences, the 4 women who came out and testified against him, the survivors, I think their experience was amplified heavily. Their negative experience with this whole situation with Danny Masterson was amplified heavily by Scientology, because you had to disconnect from friends and family. You had to dive into this, put all of your money into it, all of your time into it, all of your everything. You didn't have a free second, because if you weren't working, then you were down there doing Scientology-related stuff, auditing people or trying to climb the bridge or whatever. Like, I'm not an ex-Scientologist, but I know a little bit about it. If you aren't working, you're doing something for them. And you need to get away from all of your other friends and family who are not really affiliated with it, right? That's what abusers do. A cult is fundamentally an abusive relationship between an adherent and leadership. Now, I don't know if Danny Masterson was like using this to his advantage or what. It seems like it's reasonable to assume he was. But getting these girls to disconnect from their friends and family this way made it even easier to take advantage of them, to manipulate them emotionally, to control them. That's what it was all about. So it's like Danny Masterson and Scientology are like twisted up in this together almost. You know, Danny Masterson pulled the trigger, but in large part, Scientology was standing there like loading the gun for him, basically, you know, and showing him all these tactics that you use to control people, take advantage of them and everything else. And that part should not be lost. Scientology's role in this whole situation is extremely relevant. And on that note, in the spirit of talking about Scientology, I just want to point out the people in this picture who were affiliated, who are still affiliated, and who are no longer affiliated with Scientology. To my knowledge, Mila Kunis has never been involved in Scientology. Danny Masterson, dude in the middle left here, very much affiliated with Scientology, in good standing. He's a Scientologist in good standing. Wilmer on the right, I forget his name. Fez was his name on the show, and his real name is Wilmer Valderrama. He was never, to my knowledge, officially a member of the church, but he was always hanging around the celebrity center, hanging out with the pretty women that were in the vicinity, if you will. Ashton Kutcher was affiliated with it and did some auditing sessions, which I'll explain in a second, but never actually became a full member of the church. He did talk to them. He got advice from them, obviously, because he called his Scientologist buddy who got advice from his Scientologist higher-ups about what to do about Ashton Kutcher's situation with his girlfriend, but he never actually dove in head first to it. Eric in the center here didn't hang out with anybody else on the show, wasn't friends with any of them, didn't really want to know any of them, was kind of a loner and stayed to his own little thing, and was never affiliated with Scientology. Donna on the bottom right here, she was also affiliated with Scientology. She was a full Scientologist at one point, but split off from it about 5 years ago, my understanding. Didn't want anything to do with it after that point. Here's the thing about Scientology. I mentioned auditing a minute ago. If you've never heard the term auditing, Scientology is fundamentally like, it's supposed to be like a replacement for psychology, right? L. Ron Hubbard was the guy that started Scientology when he wrote the book Dianetics in, I don't know, the 50s or something. I don't remember when he wrote Dianetics. May 9th, 1950. I was right. How about that? Anyway, so L. Ron Hubbard wrote Dianetics, and it was supposed to be a competing theory to the psychological model that existed at the time. And the idea is you have two minds that you use. There's the analytical mind. It's the calculating one, the logical one that makes decisions and comes to conclusions and all that stuff. And then you have the reactive mind. The reactive mind is the one that deals with trauma, that has emotional outbursts and all of this other stuff. So here's what you do when you're just joining Scientology. By the way, they hate psychology, modern day psychology. They have this little thing called an e-meter, right? And it's connected to what they call cans. And they're just these little metal bars, basically, you put in your hands, and they're connected to wires that go to a little dial type of thing that has a little needle that goes back and forth, right? I actually made one of these. It's a part of a lie detector test. It's called a galvanic skin resistance tester. And it detects the minute amounts of sweat between your finger and the metal, amounts that are undetectable to humans to any degree. But you're holding two pieces of metal, and this needle will shoot over if it shows that you're stressed over something. And again, this is one of the pieces that's used in a lie detector tester. Traditionally, they use galvanic skin resistance tests for lie detector testers, and blood pressure monitors, and a whole bunch of other things. So anyways, the e-meter, like I said, I made one myself. They're dirt cheap, use really simple parts, really straightforward. You could just buy a little PCB and just wire one together yourself with transistors, for real, for like $3. That's what I did. I'll throw up a picture if I can find one. This is like years ago. They charge, how much do they charge for e-meters? As far as I can tell, it's basically $3,000 for an e-meter that you buy from Scientology. Again, I made one myself with wire and transistors and a soldering iron and a little PCB. Okay, that $5 is what it cost me, I think, total. I use a little computer speaker that I pulled off of my computer instead of a little needle that goes back and forth. Anyway, dirt cheap. Scientology is getting filthy rich off of them. So this is what Scientology does. They audit you. They give you the cans, the metal things to hold, and they have you go through your entire life. Every cringy thing that you've ever done from day one. You know, that cringy thing that you did in 6th grade that keeps you up at night that you're thinking about. If that stresses you out, they're going to see the needle go up because that's a stressful thing. They want you to go through your life beginning to end. The auditor does. And you're going to hold on to it, and they're going to watch the e-meter. And if it goes up, they're going to ask you to expand upon it. Tell them more about it. All the while taking notes on every word that you say and sending those notes back to headquarters. That's what happens. So if you were loosely affiliated with Scientology at some point, they have notes about every part of your life. And everybody has some cringy thing that they don't want other people to know. I had a lot of trouble making friends when I was in middle school. I just was not close with anybody, and that ate me up inside. When I got to high school, eventually got a lot better. But middle school was really rough, and so was elementary school. I changed schools literally every grade of my life. I changed schools. That's something I would tell the Scientologists. That's information that they would now know about me, that they would send back to headquarters. And if you become a suppressive person, an SP, somebody who's speaking out against the church, and they have a file on you, they'll use that file. And trust me, you will go through everything, every piece of your life, until you start coming up with parts of your past life that didn't really happen. You just start making stuff up about your past life. And they have this practice called fair gaming. If you break one of their rules and they don't like, your speaking out against the organization or whatever, they'll fair game you. Usually they start out with creating a website about you. I know this dude named Chris Shelton. He's an ex-Scientologist. He went through all the steps. He was born in, and now he has a podcast, I think, that's critical of Scientology. So I just type in, who is Chris Shelton? And at the very top of the list, let's see, this is the first thing after YouTube and Wikipedia. The very first thing is this website trashing the dude, pulling up old dirty laundry that certainly twisted by Scientology to hurt him personally, to make him feel bad and make him look terrible to the outside world. In reality, a lot of this stuff is twisted out of proportion and is not an accurate representation of reality. They create this website and they spend money. Scientology, the Church of Scientology, spends money on SEO, on search engine optimization. You have any idea how much it costs to do search engine optimization? They created this website years ago. When did they even register this domain? Hold on, let me see. Leah Remini Aftermath. Let me just do a quick who is search on this. All right, let's see. It was registered domain administrator, so completely anonymous. I have no problem with that. I understand anonymity. This is the who is search. Let's see if we can find out when it was registered, which date specifically they registered this website. Where is it? I mean, it's in here somewhere. Oh, here. Creation date 2016. They've had this website up since 2016. Search engine optimization, keeping a website at the top of Google search rankings like that, can cost $2,000 a month. And they've been doing it for a decade, practically. A decade, okay? $2,000 a month for 10 years. Think about that. Think about how much they hate these people. This is what fair gaming is. You know, Chris Shelton, apparently, in his auditing sessions, talked about the fact that he wished that he talked to his kid more often. That's a common thing, you know. You wish that you had a better connection with your kid. And Scientology turned that into he's a deadbeat dad who was never around for his child, who never talked to his son, abandoned him, turned his back on his own son in big, bold letters here. See, what is most mind-boggling is that Leah Remini, would use Shelton as an example of family values when he's a classic deadbeat dad who turned his back on his own son. See how it works? This is fair gaming. Now, this is how they start. They will step it up. I don't know if they still do this, probably, but Scientology's been known in the past to break car windows, slash tires, plant bugs in your house, like devices, you know, to listening devices, plant listening devices in your home to listen to your conversations and create more websites like this. They'll do whatever it takes. That's fair gaming, baby. It's deeply disturbing stuff. I've always said this about Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't have the legal right to imprison you. So they try to imprison you by manipulating your mind. They try to control you by preventing your family members from talking to you, by pulling the rug out from under you if you suddenly disagree with them, and watching you fall flat on your face. Well, Scientology doesn't care if they have the legal right to imprison you or not. They'll imprison you. Scientology has basically what amounts to a prison camp. They created a fair gaming website for Leah Remini also. You know, Leah Remini Aftermath, After Money, because she made a TV series called Aftermath criticizing the Church of Scientology on AMC. And some of this stuff is just vile that they say on these websites about people. I mean, just listen to this. Okay, Leah Remini is simply opposed to control techniques of high control groups, just like me, no differently. Okay, and she has only ever used her platform to speak out against high control groups like Scientology. Now listen to how they framed it on her fair gaming website. A woman drove a car through the front doors of the Church of Scientology of Austin, Texas, stopping just short of the nursery. Again, don't believe a word of this, of course, but just look at how it's framed. The convicted felon called Leah Remini a true inspiration, and when informed that no one was hurt, her response was, "That's too bad." The woman said thank you many times over to Leah Remini as the inspiration for her crimes. You see how they're framing it? They're framing Leah Remini as this evil person that is the source of violence and hate and destruction, when she is literally no different than me. I don't hate anybody for anything. I just want to call out destructive cult practices, high control practices by groups like this. That's it. So let me bring it back around to Ashton Kutcher and everybody else. Ashton Kutcher and Donna on the bottom right here, they did the auditing. There's a file on them in the Scientology headquarters. At one point, like I said, Ashton Kutcher was not a full member. Donna was a full member but left. But she hasn't been critical of the church. She just said, I left, and she did not write a character letter for Danny Masterson. Ashton Kutcher hasn't said a word negative about Scientology. He's not being fair gamed, but he did write a character letter on Danny Masterson's behalf. I wouldn't be surprised, again, speculation, I wouldn't be in the least bit surprised to know that Scientology's fingerprints go even deeper than we already know for a fact that they go. And they kind of pressured Ashton Kutcher into writing this character letter. Who knows? I don't know. Again, speculation. Like I was saying, I don't know if Ashton Kutcher is the bad guy in this situation or not. Was he being blackmailed? He certainly knew Danny Masterson was a scumbag. I mean, why did he write that character letter? Why did Mila Kunis write the character letter? Why did almost all of the other characters on that 70s show write these letters? Why? It just blows me away. Danny Masterson is a rapist. He is a convicted and sentenced rapist. He will never see the light of day again, possibly. Ashton Kutcher knew that when he wrote the letter. Well, he knew that he was charged, convicted, and about to be sentenced when he wrote the letter. It just makes you wonder why this situation played out the way it did. But like I said, Scientology's got its fingerprints all over everything here. And it amplified the pain and damage that was suffered by these survivors. When they brought suit against Scientology, when they reported Danny Masterson to the police, the first try, from my understanding, again, this is not something that, this is from the woman's words, Jane Doe 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is from Jane Doe number 1's words, I believe. She said when she tried to report what happened, it was violating every Scientology norm there was. You don't report people to the police that are in Scientology, ever. And when she called the LAPD to report this situation, the guy on the other line said, "You're f***ed," and then hung up. Again, alleged. I don't know if that's true. This is just what I've heard about what she said. So take everything that I've said about their stories with a grain of salt. If it's not, I will clarify if there's something that I know for a fact and if it's something that I'm speculating about in this. So keep all of that in mind when watching this. It took her, I think, 2 years to finally get a report filed because she was trying to file this report and it kept going nowhere. It finally went somewhere. And she didn't even know, the first one, that there were others. She thought she's the only one. When they found out, they joined in, reported on him too. So Scientology has their fingerprints all over every last bit of this, and it's disgusting. And I can't stand it. And I'm glad that somebody who did this stuff, like, I don't believe in retributive punishment. Like, I'm not trying to get, like, vengeance on anybody. I want society to be safe. And that requires somebody like Danny Masterson to sit in jail for the rest of his life. So I feel justice was done. And the judge felt that way too, because the judge issued a final statement to him in her closing thing after the sentence. "Mr. Masterson, I know that you're sitting here steadfast in your claims of innocence and thus no doubt feeling victimized by a justice system that has failed you. But, Mr. Masterson, you are not the victim here," said Judge Charlene Olmedo of the Los Angeles County Superior Court. "You are not the victim here. The justice system did not fail him. Beyond reasonable doubt, he committed these crimes and not only deserves to sit in there, but needs to for society's safety. Now, if we can figure out all of the other cases that Scientology has assisted in covering up, I'd be a lot happier." Let me know what you think about the case in the comments. That one was very low prep. It was, I was taking in information like mad, reading website after website after website, and checking out sources, listening to interviews by these victims, Jane Doe's number 1 through 4. I think that 2 of them are open and out about their names. Nisha Trout is Jane Doe number 3. Chrissy Bixler is Jane Doe number 2. Jane Doe number 1 is her name is Jen, which is going to go by her first name. Again, Chrissy Bixler is open and out. Nisha Trout is open and out. They have YouTube channels. They have the Twit. They have the Gram. They have all of the things that the kids use these days. So you can check them out if you're interested. Oh, yeah. And again, Ashton Kutcher knew all of those girls personally, all of them. So, yeah, growing up inside Scientology has been really, he's been, Aaron is his name, I think. He's been an invaluable resource in constructing the story that happened, like everything. So he's really good. Welcome, Lurking Off. He would probably defend him if his victims were minors. What a joke. Yeah. It's pretty sad. The whole situation is sad. Welcome. The Freak is Will Smith and Jada a Scientologist? I don't think that they are Scientologists actively, but they were affiliated, which, you know what that means. It means they have those reports on them. They have those auditing sessions. They have all that information, i.e. they have dirt on them. They could try to ruin their career at the very least. if you can't get a celebrity into your church, then they want to silence the celebrity so they have no chance of speaking out against you. And the way to do that is to get them into some auditing sessions. You know, the whole tell me everything about your life bit. I don't think that they're Scientologists, but I believe that they only ever speak positively about Scientology because they worry about what would happen if they didn't. That's my guess. I don't know. Drake Eldridge, the Smiths fund a Scientology school. Do they really? I heard that they had a Scientology school, but I didn't know if it was actively still being funded. Is it? New Village Leadership Academy is the name of it, also known as the New Village Academy. It was a private elementary school. Holy shit, dude. Elementary school located in Calabasas, California, USA. Indian Hills High School previously used the campus, and in 2008, Will Smith funded New Village Academy and leased the Calabasas facilities for 3 years. So it was a private school that's basically a Scientology school as far as I can tell. Founders were Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith in 2008, and then it closed in 2013. Interesting. Well, like I said, I don't think that they're active Scientologists, but I don't believe that you'll ever hear them say a negative word about it. They got too much dirt on too many people. That's why you never hear anything negative about Scientology. You know what happened to the women who reported on Danny Masterson and who were suing the Church of Scientology and all that? Jane Doe's 1 through 4? Somebody came and poured chemicals in their lawn and killed their grass. It's a pretty clear message, right? I mean, I'm risking being fair gamed by talking about this in the first place, but I cannot not talk about things. If it comes up, I must address this stuff. I cannot leave it alone.